Dr. Moali. Welcome to Deep Into Sleep.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Me too. I have listened to your podcast. I really like it. I know you are in the field of you are good at a lot of things, but sexual wellness is one of your specialty, at least.
Yes, thank you for that beautiful introduction. Yes, I'm a certified sex therapist. And my podcast is about psychology of sex.
Yes. So, and my specialty is sleep medicine. So I'm curious. A lot of time I hear people talking about, they use sex related activities to help them fall asleep. They may feel relaxed after having sex or masturbation. And I'm wondering whether you are aware of any connections between sleep health and sexual wellness.
What an interesting point. I hear from my clients that they say that, after having sex, it's easier for me to fall asleep. So what I did a while back, I looked into literature and see what could be the relationship. Is there some findings around that? And that's what's interesting is that scientists found that there are certain hormonal changes during sex, and that helps with people falling asleep. So sex boosts actually oxytocin and lower cortisol, which both are great. So oxytocin is the hormone that makes us feel connected, and cortisol is a stress related hormone. So when we're having sex, then those hormonal changes happens. And for a bonus point, when people have orgasm, they get a release of prolactin, which makes them feel relaxed and sleepy. So that could be part of what's happening for many people when they're reaching orgasm, when they have sex. And specifically for women, it sex can boost estrogen level, which helps with enhancing the REM stage sleep and help people to have a deeper sleep. So that's another connection that I found.
Oh, that's very interesting. So people's feeling, what I heard from others, actually there are some scientific evidence behind it. It actually do reduce our stress level and can help us feel more relaxed biologically. There are lots
Mm-hmm.
happening in our body.
Right, right. It's kind of like hormonal changes, the cocktail that makes it easier for people afterward to be able to fall asleep.
Yeah. So when we talk about that, it reminds me, sometimes people, just like sleep, we have performance anxiety. I
Mhm.
think for sex, sometimes people have performance anxiety also, right? So I'm wondering if someone listen to this scientific results, they may think, oh, I have to get orgasm. I have to have a good sex in order to be able to feel relaxed and reduce my stress. Is that true?
Well, I think you brought up such a good point. So no, we know that similar to sleep, when we are fixated that I must get an orgasm to or experience an orgasm in order to be able to have a good night's sleep, then that's almost a perfect recipe for a disaster of like not being able to have a sex you want. Because during sexual experiences, we need to be at such it's a kind of optimal point with arousal and also a kind of feeling relaxed. When we are kind of like more anxious and when we are focusing on kind of being task oriented, that gets in the way of us getting connected to our body, and that might actually hinder us experiencing orgasm. And for many of my male clients, it lead to them losing an erection, which definitely people can lose sleep over that.
Oh, wow. So if we give ourselves too much pressure about whether we have to please ourselves, reach certain point, or please our partners on bed, actually good sex may not happen.
Absolutely. And again, we talked about part of what changes our hormones is not necessarily connected to orgasm. So you might even lose the benefit of kind of like changes in oxytocin, and also you're increasing your cortisol when you're stressing yourself out. I tell people that, like many of my male clients, that they have erectile functioning challenge. When they go their cortisol level to get tested, they see that their cortisol level is high, and that's why they're not able to get an erection. So there's definitely a connection there.
Oh, I see. Wow, that's very interesting to think about what may be behind all this and this hormonal change we may not be aware of. But if we always in that mindset and try to pursue those, try to please everyone, including ourselves, and it actually, our body reacts to it.
Absolutely. And again, that there's an element of evolutionary psychology there, right? Because when we were in nature, in kind of wilderness, for our ancestors who were living in caves, if uh, if you were uh, if you were getting chased by the lion, it wouldn't be beneficial for you to get blood flow in your penis or your genital. You needed that blood flow to your leg, so you can run. So the same kind of situation also now is present for many people, that if you want to have optimal kind of sex that's good enough, it's important for you to focus on regulating your emotion, and more importantly, not focusing on the result.
I really like the word you use, good enough sex, not so-called perfect sex, right? So regarding this, I get a lot of questions from friends, from people I know, even though I'm not an expert, so I'm very happy I can ask you, because a lot of people think about what is perfect sex, what should be the standard. A lot of men think about I should be harder, I should last longer, right? To make my partner satisfied. But I'm wondering, is that true? Is that really what women want? And does that really, if you push yourself to meet certain standards, does that really give you a so-called perfect sex?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that question, because I get that a lot from my clients. And you said, like, as you said, from the community, that people are misinformed about what good sex is. Because if you're thinking about the education you got from around sex, most people, they haven't received any education about sex, or they received a sex negative education. And what they learn is mostly from porn, kind of a sexual entertainment material. I'm not against porn, but what happens is when we're using it for sex education, we get a wrong idea about what's the kind of good enough sex look like. Because in porn, we don't see any foreplay, we don't see any kind of like play and engagement that leads to people be ready, their body to be ready for penetration. And after, I don't know, a few minutes of penetration, the couples have this like mind-blowing orgasm. But that's not how sex work, right? So many times my clients, they think, especially when they're in a heterosexual relationship, that what would make their relationship, their sex better, especially from male partner, is that I must, as you mentioned, last long, and the penetration needs to be, my penis needs to be firm, all of that, without kind of having a conversation with their partner of what she wants. And many women, as we know, they're not experiencing orgasm through penetration. It's actually about clitoral stimulation that helps them to experience orgasm. So I love that you also think that the key word is good enough sex, because there is no perfection. And it's important for us to focus on what gives our body pleasure, and making sure that you are having positive experiences with your partner. So it's more about, when it comes to sex, what it feels like versus what it looks like.
I like it. So really feel it with your body, have this communication with your partner. What we think, oh, it should be this way, this is the so-called good way, may actually not really be helpful to the relationship, to the intimacy, to the interaction.
Absolutely. And, we all are different about what turns us on, what are our turn ons and turn offs. And one misconception that I hear at times from couples is that saying that if my partner likes me, he or she would know what I like. And I always tell them that your partner is not a mind reader, and our bodies evolve and our needs evolve. So it's important for each individual to verbalize what works for them and communicate that with their partner.
Yeah, that's very good suggestion. When you talk about communicating with the partner, I think actually a lot of people are really either feel shamed or shy or worried they're gonna hurt their partner's feeling by communicating. So I heard a lot of my friends, like Chinese in the Chinese community, because it's even more a taboo to talk about this topic, right? So a lot of people actually just say no to sex. I'm either too tired or I have children to take care of. I'm not in the mood for it. So I'm not hearing a lot of communication from couples, but it's just a rejection or a lot of excuses in this kind of bedroom activity. What do you think about it?
Absolutely. I grew up in a conservative community as well, and I'm Iranian American. And I know in our community it's the same as well, that we have lots of implicit kind of communication, that it's not okay to directly say what's going on, so we imply. And especially even for my clients that are coming from more kind of Western culture, it's tough to talk about sex if that's something that you haven't experienced growing up. And I think it's important to acknowledge that when you're talking about it with your partner. So if you're thinking about kind of restructuring your sex life with your partner, the first good step is to carve out time to talk about it. And again, as you mentioned, that this can be a very challenging kind of topic, and you can share that with your partner, saying that I want to talk to you about something, but it feels very vulnerable and uncomfortable. So they know that this is a challenging topic for you, but it's a very important topic, because what happens, as you mentioned, as our lives evolve, as our jobs get busier, as we're having children, unless we really focus on maintaining our sexual connection with our partner, it will kind of deprioritize. And many couples, because of that, they end up in sexless relationships and marriages that's not what they envisioned ever for themselves.
Right. I think I read some data. Actually, the sexless marriage or sexless relationship, I think that means you have less than one time of sex each month, less than that kind of frequency. Actually, the percentage for couples like this are quite high in America.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting secret that many couples have, because almost everyone thinks the other people are having more sex than them. But in a monogamous relationship long term, you're right that big part of population are in sexless marriages, and it's not something that they choose. They end up at that place because of how things unfolded in their lives.
Yeah, so a lot of things get in the way. Earlier, we talked about having sex is really helpful with our stress level, with our sleep. But for couples like that, life really gets in the way. It either gets them or maybe something wrong with their relationship. They don't want to be close with their partner. So, is there anything they can do? I'm sure couples like that may seek help from professionals like you.
Right, right. I see a lot of couples with mismatched libido. Like one partner wants sex more, and the other partner, for a number of different reasons, they don't want that frequency of sex, or they don't feel sexually open to their partner. One of the contributing factor is very related to what you're talking about in your podcast. Like, people are tired. We all are exhausted, especially now, like during like we're recording this in 2021, that what a year everyone had. kind of in a global level, and we're exhausted. And it's, if we're not prioritizing sex, then that would become a last thing in our list. And we are already psychologically, physically tired. And when we are tired, we're not experiencing desire, and our bodies are not responsive. It's almost impossible to have sex when you are in that level of exhaustion.
Yes, so being tired definitely is one big factors behind this. No, I don't want sex, and let's just skip sex, and then skip, turned out to almost have no sex.
Absolutely. And then it becomes uncomfortable, right? If when you haven't had sex with your partner for years or for months, then initiating and like changing the cycle can be uncomfortable. And at times our bodies are not ready for sex, when if we haven't had sex for not long time, because the way that it works for most people, the more frequent connecting, rewarding sexual experiences you have with your partner, you will be open to have more of that. It's similar, like if you're going to a restaurant and you have a great food and great experience, it's most likely that you would go back, more likely that you would go back compared to another situation when you go, like you had food poisoning or you didn't like the food. So it's the same concept with sex as well.
Yeah, so sounds like our brain need to link sexual experience with pleasant environment, feelings, and to help promote it.
Absolutely, yes. And I think the more we're sexual with our partner, more most people feel more connected. And that connection can energize a relationship outside and inside the bedroom.
Yeah, that's so important to remember. And then you mentioned earlier about the mismatched libido, right? I heard so many, especially women. I talk to more like Asian women about this because normally they are more open about what they are not satisfied in their marriage life. So a lot of them did notice this mismatch of libido in their own relationship. Do you think that's very common thing? Is that something we can do something about, or is totally biological? We cannot do anything about it.
Well, there could be a part that's biological, but absolutely that's something that you can negotiate and kind of work through with your partner, and it starts with communication. So when we're talking about mismatched libido, we're talking about a partner that wants sex more, and the other partner doesn't want the sex just the same frequency or at all. So I talk about the different possibilities that can contribute to this dynamic. One is in all like different stages of our lives, our health and kind of physiological health and psychological health is different. Sometimes we have lots of things in our mind, we're stressed, we're depressed, have a number of different things that are going on, and that impacts our desire. Or sometimes there could be a kind of like medical issues. Sometimes when we have diabetes, we have blood pressure, all of that also can impact our kind of ability to be sexual with our partner and desire. And sometimes the issue is relational. So sometimes I see that couples coming in that there was a betrayal in the relationship and the issue hasn't been addressed. So the one of the partner feels hurt and they don't want to be connected with the partner. But if it's not necessarily psychological, it's important to kind of like the first good step is to kind of talking about when you are at your optimal place with your sexuality, kind of going back to sleep. Some people are morning people, some people are night owls. So it depends on you and your partner. What kind of a style do you have? At times, when we're talking about it, like we'll decide on somewhere in between. So maybe during noontime on weekends would be when you would be at your optimal place with your hormones, you're not exhausted. So kind of starting from there, kind of like starting from the time that your body is more responsive and kind of like this kind of scheduling sex. So one thing that I share with couples is that if you are in a monogamous long-term relationship, you need to schedule sex, because if you don't schedule it, then the children comes into play, your family comes to play. There's so many responsibility that you have that you might not have time already or be ready to have sex. But when you're scheduling it, at least you know that you carved out time, you kind of took care of children. That's the time that you are dedicating to connect with your partner sexually.
That's so interesting because we always say, well, when we are busy, sleep is the first thing to go. Feels like sex is possibly one of the top things to go also if we don't schedule it.
Absolutely. And again, if we're tired, it's like if we're not even sexually responsive. So that can make things more challenging as well.
Yeah. So for scheduling sex, I would think about both pros and cons. If I would say I can imagine when we scheduling sex, we may think, wow, this is something to look forward to, right? I can be prepared and I know that time gonna be our bonding time, gonna be a great time, I look forward to it, how I can prepare for it better. But on the other hand, nowadays we do everything online. There's so many meetings. Will someone feel like, or scheduling sex is just another thing on top of my long to-do list and become overwhelmed?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to keep in mind that when you schedule sex, you're scheduling this time to be connected with your partner. And sex could mean lots of different things. Yes, it could be penetration, but it could be giving each other's massages, kissing, caressing, doing like reading some erotica. So it could be a number of different things. But to your point, that at times I tell my clients that they say, no, it's not sexy to schedule sex. And I tell them, what's not sexy? Not having sex is not sexy. So you can have spontaneous sex if you as you wish and when you want it. But when you're scheduling sex, then you are making sure that you are kind of like it's an optimal time for you when it comes to busyness. And also you can prepare some ritual around it for yourself to become emotionally open. And what would that entail could be like doing some breathing exercises, mindfulness meditation, because anxiety and stress can be a huge inhibitor for many men and women to be able to be sexual with their partner. When we are anxious and our brain is racing, it's hard to be connected sexually with our partner. So when we're knowing, for example, Saturdays at 10 a.m. It's my sexy time with my partner, then maybe at 9:45, 9:30, you can start with doing the ritual that helps your body and your mind to get calmer and quiet.
I really like that. It feels like a lot of time we have very narrow definition about what sex is. So a lot of people tend to see that as a task, as a responsibility. And when you're tired, it's not enjoyable. But sounds like sex can be so many different things. It's about pleasure, about bonding, and not only with your partner, it also includes sex with yourself.
Absolutely. And that they found that there was one of my colleagues did this study around sexual experiences of couples during COVID. And
Mm.
what she found that many people lost their orgasm because of the level of stress. But when you are physically connected with your partner during sex, that can help your system to get regulated. So it's a regulatory, it has kind of have that benefit as well. So you're right that it could serve at different purposes. And you're right, unless you're trying to have a child, then there's no need for sex to be only or even kind of anything related to penetration.
Right. Yeah. So, other than with partners, a lot of people do have the question about masturbation. And is that like in what frequency is that healthy? Or I know a lot of couples, when they are in a relationship already, they may have negative views about masturbation, right? Kind of like we're together, then you don't have your own time for your own pleasure.
Well, that's a common question that I get. That first of all, some cultures, again, including my culture, like the messages around masturbation is often negative. Like it's not. Sometimes it's not talked about, or sometimes it's kind of like have this negative connotation. I know that like last century they're talking about you get a hairy palms or going to go blind if you masturbate. But what we found right now, it can be a great tool for emotional regulation. So it's a way for you to experience release. It can help with anxiety reduction. So it has numerous benefits. And the other benefit that it has that's so important is that it helped us to know our body. Sometimes when I have couples in my office and I ask each partner what you like, one of the partners, oftentimes female partner, she cannot say what she likes because she never explored her body. So when we're exploring our body, we have more awareness about our likes and dislikes. I know that sometimes couples, when they are in a relationship, there is an expectation that you're not engaging in masturbation, you're not experiencing any solo experience because all of your sexual experiences need to be with me. And that's lots of pressure to put on yourself and your partner for a number of different reasons. Because sometimes, again, at times we have different times that we are feeling excited and aroused. And if our partner is taking care of their sexual need, then they're not going to pressure you for making sure that you are fulfilling their needs 100% of time. And also, I think there's benefit in engaging in indulging your creativities, and sexual fantasies are a source of creativity for us. As you're practicing that, then it helps you to be more in contact with your erotic life. And that can actually energize your partner sexual experiences. You asked about when it becomes an issue. I would say it becomes an issue if you kind of experience performance sexual challenges with your partner. So if your partner want to be sexual with you and you masturbated several times that day and you're not interested to be with them, then that shows that then okay, it kind of takes away things from the kind of relationship. But again, also I know me and you as a mental health providers, we know that if that's the case, then there are other things going on. This is a system of avoidance that perhaps can get in the way of people kind of wanting to be connected sexually with each other. So I would say unless it disrupts your relationship in a way that you're not able to be sexual with your partner, or gets in the way of you showing off or kind of like your work, because sometimes people get so preoccupied with masturbation that they kind of sometimes they stay up all night and they masturbate to porn and they're not going to work next day. So if it's not that extreme, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. That's I think that's possibly very helpful information for a lot of couples to know, for a lot of people to know for themselves, right? There's a limit, there's a boundary, there's a function of it. And when you talk about it, remind me of in sleep how we think about like if you just rely on sleep medication or something else to help you put you to sleep, you lost this independence, you lost this natural ability to fall asleep. It feels like sex too. If you always rely on your partner to be the one make you feel great, to fulfill your sexual needs, then you are missing something, missing the chance at least to explore your own pleasure, your own body. And also the pressure is definitely high for both parties.
Absolutely. And, sometimes I have couples that they say that, when they don't masturbate, that they feel rejected when they're rejected and angry when their partner don't want to have sex with them because they don't have that outlet for themselves to kind of explore their pleasure. So it all kind of like they over rely on their partner to help them with their release and sexual pleasure.
Yeah. Definitely. So that's I think that's so consistent with a lot of marriage therapists. What they talk about is a relationship is a two-person dance. It's need a lot of negotiation, communication, understanding, and so when we have needs, our partner may not necessarily going to be there for us. So how to really reach a nice balance in between, how to keep the communication channel open so you can dance together very smoothly, not step on each other's toes all the time.
Absolutely. You're right that it's just a matter of balancing your own kind of like personhood independence and the connection that you have with your partner.
Yeah, I love all this information, Dr. Moali. So, near the end of the show, is there any final wisdom you want to give our listeners if they're listening and they're really curious about this topic about sex wellness?
Well, I think one important recommendation and invitation I have for your listeners is that if there's an issue around sex, make sure you're addressing it sooner than later. Because what happens is at times research shows that people wait 3 to 5 years before seeing a professional. And what happens between these 3 to 5 years is that lots of relational issues secondary issues get built up. Then you're resentful toward your partner. Maybe there you will have other relationship outside relationship, your primary relationship. So it can add up to the kind of multiple layers to the initial issue. So if you've been struggling to connect sexually with your partner for a few months, first good step is to talk to them. But if you feel like you guys are not able to problem solve it, working with a sex therapist also can be a next good step.
Great advice. So, if our listeners want to find out more about your podcast or your practice, how can they find it?
Well, thank you so much for asking that. So, my podcast, they can find it in iTunes, teachers all over, kind of like places that people listen to podcasts. The title is Sexology. They can find the podcast on sexologypodcast.com as well. And I'm a psychologist and sex therapist in Los Angeles. So they can find my information about my private practice as oasistocare.com.
Great. Thank you so much. I will put all these links, information on the show note also to make sure people can click through and knows where to find them.
Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Moali. Thank you for coming to share all this. This is awesome. Nice talking to you. Thank you for watching our videos or listening to our podcast. If you like our show, please feel free to subscribe, like, and share it. If you have any questions or feedback, we would always love to hear from you. You can either email us or leave feedback on our website at mindbodygarden.com or directly under the YouTube video channel. Thank you very much for your company today, and hopefully to hear from you or have you with us next time.